Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be my reading recap for July 2024. If you're interested in seeing what books I read last month, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, this video is going to be my reading recap for July 2024. But before we get into the books that I read last month, I did want to do a little bit of a life update / channel update for you all. If you've been watching my videos, you'll probably have noticed that in the last few months, I have not been posting here on YouTube or on my Instagram regularly. When it comes down to it, the reason for that is just that I've had a lot of life stuff happening. I feel like 2024 has really put me through the ringer, and I just feel like I'm not fully in it right now. You know, I'm kind of trying to take life day by day and put my energy where I need to put my energy. Videos here on YouTube, posting on Instagram. It's fun and I love it. I enjoy doing it, and it's needed to take a back burner while I focus on day-to-day important life things. And I am trying and I am hoping to get myself back into a groove again in terms of life in general, and hopefully with that happening, me feeling like I have the time and the energy to put into stuff like YouTube and Instagram. But in all honesty, I don't know when that's gonna happen. I truly don't. And so I'm just gonna take each day as it comes, and if I have the time to record a video like I do right now, I'm gonna record it, and hopefully that'll mean that I'll find the motivation and the time to edit it and upload it, though that doesn't always happen. I still have video clips from a reading vlog of me finishing the Game of Thrones no, the Throne of Glass series that never saw the light of day. I also have video clips of me talking in full spoilers about each book in the Throne of Glass series after I finish it. That never saw the light of day. I don't know that I'm ever gonna go back and actually edit those videos and put them up. But if I have the time, if I have the motivation, if I have the energy, you will see something posted on here. You will see something posted on Instagram. And yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to be gentle with myself. I'm trying to prioritize the things that I need to prioritize. I do want to make my health something that I prioritize, because I feel like I'm still just health-wise not where I want to be, even after surgery, even feeling so much better since having surgery. So we'll see. We'll see what the rest of this year has in store for me. That's the air going on. It's way too hot in here to not have it on right now. So if you hear that in the background, I apologize. Hopefully I'll be able to adjust the volume to make that a little easier. I also cut off all my hair. I tend to do that every 2 to 3 years. I usually try to grow it out pretty long, cut it off, donate it. I was able to donate 16 inches, so that's really exciting. Cut it all off. We'll see how long it takes to grow out again, but that's my life update. Now let's get into what we're actually here for, which is talking about the books that I read in July. I'm going to be referencing my Archer and Olive reading journal. This is my first month in this reading journal. I do have a flip through of this up on my channel, as well as my plan with me for July. So let's get into it. Let's get into talking about the books that I read in July. I did read every single book that was on my TBR, which is really exciting. That's the second or third time I've done that this year. So that was really exciting. And the first book that we're going to talk about is one that I listened to, and that is An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. This is the third book in the Bridgerton series. I started the Bridgerton series in June. I've just been kind of reading them in between other books, usually listening to them and reading along. And this one I was actually pleasantly surprised with. On the show, I'm not a huge fan of Benedict. I just don't find him that entertaining. So I didn't know how I was going to feel about this book, but my friend who has read the whole series did tell me that she actually really liked Benedict's book. And now that I've read it, I can see why. I actually really enjoyed it as well. It's kind of a Cinderella story vibe, and it's just fun. And I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Very much looking forward to Benedict's season of the show now that I have read his book. I'm sweating, so the hair already has gone up. The next book that we're going to talk about is an ARC that I received a physical copy of from Sourcebooks Casablanca, so thank you to them for sending this to me. I also got the advanced listening copy through NetGalley, so I did listen and physically read at the same time, and that book is Beautiful Villain by Rebecca Kenney. This is the beginning of a series by Rebecca Kenney, where she's kind of reimagining like semi-villainous characters from like classic works, I think. And this one, our male main character's name is Jay Gatsby, like the main character in The Great Gatsby. This is a romance, but it's definitely fantasy as well. Honestly, it's kind of creepy. Like, the lengths that this guy has gone to after not talking to this woman for years and years and years, it's bordering on creepy. And I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the romance. Even the fantasy elements of it, I think they were kind of interesting. Like, she takes a very popular fantasy creature and she does put her own spin on it, which was cool. But it just didn't, to me, lean in enough to that. And it lent too heavily on the romance. And I think that was to the book's detriment. So I ended up rating this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Just wasn't for me. The next book that we're going to talk about is an ARC that I received a physical copy of, but I don't have it. I lent it to a friend. And I feel so lucky that I got this. And that is Lost and Lassoed by Lyla Sage. To get this ARC copy of Lost and Lassoed, I was just so thankful, so excited, so happy. Thank you to the Dial Press for that. And I picked this up and I read it really quickly and I absolutely loved it. When it comes to Lost and Lassoed, I am not a big enemies to lovers fan. That's not a trope that I generally really enjoy because I feel like it's not very often that it's done super well. But with the buildup in Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled, I was very much looking forward to Lost and Lassoed. And it far exceeded my expectations. I loved the enemies to lovers in here and how it was done. I loved the connection between our two main characters. I loved how the relationship was built. I thought the relationship pacing was really good. And I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't quarter rate books, but if I did, I'd probably give it a 4.75 because I liked it just a little bit more than Done and Dusted. It's definitely my favorite book in the Rebel Blue Branch series. And it's made me so excited for it to come out and for everyone to read it. And so excited for the 4th book in the series. So when this releases, please pick it up. Please read it. Please read the series if you haven't picked it up yet. It's so, so, so good. And this book was so good. Next, we are going to talk about a book that I've had on my shelf for a while and I've been wanting to read for a while and just haven't gotten around to. And that is Everyone is Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling. So I'm not a huge nonfiction person, but I have a challenge for myself this year to read 6 nonfiction books. And I read a Mindy Kaling book last year. I read Why Not Me? I loved it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Ever since reading that book, I've been really, really looking forward to reading this book. And it did not disappoint. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I actually listened to this and read along at the same time. And the audiobook is narrated by Mindy Kaling, which is great. And yeah, I just love this. She's so funny. She's so fun. I want her to write another book. I really, really do. Another nonfiction book because I want to pick it up right away. And I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that we're going to talk about is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. This is the 4th book in the Bridgerton series. This is the book that follows Colin and Penelope. I wasn't super looking forward to their season of the show, and I quite honestly didn't really enjoy their season of the show at all. I was not looking forward to reading this book in the series, but I was actually kind of hoping that the book would have redeemed them as a couple for me. And I'll be honest, didn't do that. Still didn't enjoy Colin at all. Kind of still feel a little iffy about Penelope. Ended up giving this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Not for me. Just not for me. And I haven't picked up another Bridgerton book since finishing this one. I will continue with the series. I'm hopeful that future books will be better than this one was. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. Next, we're going to talk about a book that I got a physical ARC of. I did actually just recently get a finished copy from the publisher. So thank you to Aladdin for this. And that book is Not Nothing by Gayle Forman. So this is a middle grade book. I thought it was touching. I thought it was moving. I thought it was great content for middle grade children. It's telling you 2 different stories at once, and our younger character is learning the story of the older character from him. He's being told the story, but I really wish there had been more of that story reciprocation in our young character telling this older gentleman about his life as well and what he's been going through, and kind of trying to work out some of what he's dealing with by talking it through with this older gentleman. I thought that would have been a really interesting piece to the puzzle and a really interesting dynamic to add in, and it wasn't. And I think that's where this book kind of dropped the ball for me. But again, still really enjoyed this. Ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that we're going to talk about is one that instantly caught my attention when I saw the cover, because the cover is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. Definitely one of the prettiest covers I have seen in a new release all year, that's for sure. And I actually was fortunate enough to get this finished review copy from the publisher, which is really, really exciting. So thank you so much to Bramble for that. And this book is The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. I mean, come on, look at how beautiful that is. It's so pretty. And it came with these gorgeous kind of lilac lavendery sprayed edges, which is really cool. I ended up really, really enjoying this. I thought it was so much fun. I loved our main character. I loved our little spider plant character. I liked our male main character. I liked our setting. I wish this would be a series because I like the setting enough and these side characters enough that I would love to learn more about them and spend more time with them. But it was just so enjoyable, and the focus on the characters was so fun. And yeah, I loved it. It was such a great time, such a great read. I think I really liked the audiobook. I think it was fun. So definitely give that a listen if you're curious about this as well. 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed this. The next book we're going to talk about is an ARC that I received digitally via NetGalley, and that is The Breakup Pact by Emma Lord. I have not read anything from this author before. I was definitely very intrigued to pick this one up. It just seemed, based on the cover, like it would be a really fun summery romance, and it takes place by the water, so I definitely think reading it in the summertime is a good idea. I was instantly excited for this one because I love childhood friends to lovers. That's kind of my favorite romance trope, and I think it's really hard to find a childhood friends to lovers that's done well or done right. And so whenever I stumble upon that subgenre, I get excited. And I didn't dislike this, right? I didn't dislike this at all. It also has fake dating in it, which is a trope that I love. I love the fake dating trope. I think that it can be done so fun and so well. And so this had a lot of things that I was intrigued by and interested in. I just think that the execution maybe left something to be desired for me. I think it ended up falling kind of flat towards the end. And to be totally honest, it's not super memorable to me. I can't remember the details. They're not very memorable. So I did end up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Again, not bad. And again, if you're looking for like a quick, easy summary kind of romance vibe, this is certainly that. The next book we're going to talk about is one that I am so excited I picked up and read. So I have seen a lot of people talk about this book, and I've seen that this book has kind of blown up a little bit. And so I ended up picking it up knowing that I wanted to read it sooner rather than later. And that is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. I, again, have heard that this is really, really good. I've realized that I quite enjoy young adult fantasy. I really like young adult fantasy specifically. And so I was excited for this. Now, this is definitely enemies to lovers. And I said earlier, that's not really a trope that I tend to like. But something about the enemies to lovers that I read this month, they were hitting for sure. And this one definitely hit. I loved this. I could not get enough of this. I couldn't put this down. I wanted to keep reading. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a really interesting story. It involves witches. It involves betrayal and deceit. And our main character is a total badass. And the male main character is quite interesting and intriguing in terms of like his inner dialogue and his inner thought process. And I just thought it was such a great book. I thought it was written well. I thought it was an interesting story and concept. The next book, I can't remember when it comes out. It might not be until next year, but I did get the ARC for it digitally. And I want to read it sooner rather than later because I don't want to forget anything from this one. I've already forgot a ton of stuff from this one. Let's get real. But this one was so good. 4.5 stars for this one. It didn't give me that 5-star feeling, but I loved it. The next book we're going to talk about is one that I have mentioned in a couple different videos and have mentioned how I can't believe I haven't read it yet. I finally read it. That's Funny Story by Emily Henry. While I will say I still thoroughly enjoyed this, I can't see myself not thoroughly enjoying an Emily Henry book. I didn't love this. This is definitely not my favorite, second favorite, or probably third favorite Emily Henry book. I liked our main characters. I liked their dynamic. I loved the way that our male main character treated our female main character. Genuinely. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad. But it just, I didn't love it. Oh, by the way, I did listen and read for this one and enjoyed doing that. It was fun. The next book is one that I have needed to pick up for a very long time. I read the first book in this series in early 2023. I don't know. I didn't know if I was like emotionally prepared for this one. And that is Us Against You by Fredrik Backman. I love Fredrik Backman's writing. It's super interesting to me. I think the way that he weaves the story together is fantastic. Now, I did listen and read this at the same time, and I think I was able to get through it a little quicker because of the fact that I was also listening to it. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love these characters. I love this story. I'm so thankful that he continued with this story. And I know that The Winners is the third book in this series, and it's a chunker. It's quite large. And I do definitely want to read it. And my hope is to read it before the end of this year. But I definitely need a little break after this one. One thing I will say is that my favorite character in this series, at the end of this book, he's leaving town. But I hope he's coming back. Because if he's not in The Winners, I'm going to be pretty devastated, honestly. But we'll see what happens. I thoroughly enjoyed this. 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely will be continuing on in the series. After reading Us Against You, I wanted to dive back into another fantasy, and I knew exactly what fantasy I wanted to read, but in order to read it, I had to read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. So I read Powerless at the beginning of this year. It's actually the first book that I finished this year, and I did vlog it. It's the first vlog I ever did. So if you're interested in watching that, I could definitely put it in the cards. And when this came out, I picked it up right away, but I didn't read it. I think I felt like it would be a good idea to kind of read this right before I was going to read Reckless as a way to kind of familiarize myself with the story again. And so I picked this up towards the end of July, and I knew going into it that it was obviously going to have a very sad ending, but it was a really interesting story. I didn't know, like, before reading it, I kind of thought, like, is this a cash grab? Like, is this really necessary? But after reading it, it was good enough that I think it was helpful or added to the story. We do get introduced to a character in here that I am very intrigued by. And I thought he was going to show up in Reckless. He doesn't. So it was definitely more so planting a seed for the third book in this series. I liked this a lot. I did listen to it and read at the same time. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. And I did immediately after that pick up Reckless. I just didn't finish Reckless in the month of July. I finished it actually on August 1st. So I will be talking about Reckless in my August recap. The next book we're going to talk about is the last book that I read in the month of July. I actually started this book on June 30th, and I read it slowly throughout the month of July. I finished it on the 29th. This is a reread. Now, I don't reread books very often. When I'm thinking about it, the only books that I can really remember rereading are the Harry Potter series and The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I may have reread the Hunger Games books at one point, but I generally don't reread books. And I do think that I would like to reread certain books, especially books in series where you can maybe pick up on new things upon second read. And this series in particular, I have been wanting to reread since I read the third book in the series. And because reading the third book in the series, I realized that the first book in the series probably had a lot of foreshadowing and a lot of Easter eggs that you don't even realize until you're reading the third book. And I love this author's style of writing, even though some characters in this series drive me absolutely crazy. So I did buy an extra set of this series with the intention of one day rereading it and like fully annotating it. And I don't really annotate books either. I will with some books tab a couple of quotes, but I don't generally fully annotate things. I did fully annotate the first book in the Harry Potter series when I was in high school for a paper, for a project for school. And I did fully annotate Iron Flame when I read it, but that's kind of it that I can remember. And so I went for it. I fully annotated this book. I needed to buy extra freaking tabs off Amazon because I went through so many tabs. And that book is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This series is a challenging series. This is a love it or hate it series. I love this series, and I'm very much looking forward to the series continuing with 2 more Daisy Hates books. And I will say this has been my least favorite book in the series. And that's because BJ, our male main character, drives me absolutely crazy in this book. Upon reread, I feel the same way. BJ definitely drives me crazy at points in this book, but going back and reading it with what I know from The Long Way Home and Into the Dark, I can understand BJ's perspectives and his reasonings a little bit more. I'm not saying I support them, but I think BJ in this book is really coming from a place of fear and a place of insecurity and a place of trauma, and we don't know that. And so going back, I definitely felt for him, though I still don't necessarily agree with him. I still find Magnolia hilarious. I find her even more hilarious going back and rereading this. I tabbed the heck out of this thing. I have a full kind of tab glossary in the front here. I did foreshadowing quotes, relationship info specific to Magnolia and BJ, general info, and then funny stuff. And genuinely, you cannot turn to a single page in this book without me having highlighted something. I definitely went in and wrote like little notes here and there. Oh, like that one was really good. Dang it, I missed it. That's where she's talking about Julian. Here we go. Messy brown hair, big blue eyes, 5 o'clock shadow, drop dead gorgeous. It makes me want to dive into rereading and annotating Daisy Hates, but I don't think I'm going to do that in the month of August. I think I'm going to save that and maybe do it in September. Oh, Heart in the hand of a girl who's holding someone else's. Oh, that kind of breaks your heart a little bit, doesn't it? She's happy and my heart is breaking right there on my face. Oh, it's like, there's just so many things. I genuinely cannot go a page in this without having like something that I underline that's important, or something that like, it's just funny. I remember resentment pounding through my body, and then I remember it like a physical punch in the gut. How much I loved him, really loved him, to the bone loved him, cut me and I'd bleed him. How much I needed him, still needed him, would forever, always, never, couldn't, even if I tried, needed him. And I remember being deeply afraid of what my life would be like without him in it. Like, are you kidding me? Like, his voice, I remember it sounding like Christmas morning and my birthday and Valentine's Day and home. And I loved him. I can't. So anyways, I reread this, fully annotated it, loved doing it, found so many interesting foreshadowy things. And the next book in the series is Daisy Hates. It's following completely different characters, but I do still want to kind of go through that annotation process. I don't think there will be as much foreshadowing in Daisy Hates for Daisy Hates the Great Undoing, but I'm still very much looking forward to it. And that's the last book that I read in July. That is it for my reading recap. One thing I did want to mention before I close out this video is that I did not read my Instagram challenge book for July. I quite honestly forgot about it because I would have normally put it on my TBR, completely forgot about it. And then it was about the third week of the month when I remembered. And then I looked up the book and it is ginormous. It's ginormous. So I just kind of knew I wasn't going to get to it, and I had to kind of be okay with that. I would at some point like to go back and actually read it, but I just don't know when that's going to be. But I will be getting back on my Instagram challenge grind in the month of August. And that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it sees the light of day. I hope I post it. And yeah, as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.